Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Garden Basics. Today I'm going to show you how to build a terrarium. In one of my earlier episodes I showed you a couple of the terrariums I have and how they work, but I'm actually going to show you how to build one today. So these are two of the ones that I have, and I just wanted to give you an example of the different kind of jars you can use. So you can see this one sits as such, and it's an open jar terrarium, but it sits pretty deep, and this is how I have this set up. All up here is going to be dead space or air, and I've got the soil, gravel, and such. And then this one is just a vase, which I've decided to turn into a terrarium. You can see the exact same setup with the stone, sphagnum, and the soil. And I've got two different types of plants in this one, and it's actually the best one I have in terms of growth. But I'll show you what you can do. This time I'm going to use this smaller glass jar. So it really doesn't matter what type of glass jar you use. Anything can be turned into an open air terrarium, basically. So what you'll need is some stones. They need to be about a medium size like this. Something close to the size of a pea, maybe a little bit bigger, and that's going to be for your drainage. Next, what you'll need is sphagnum moss. This is your barrier between the stones and the soil. And lastly, you're going to need some soil. This is an activated charcoal blend, which just helps filter the water down through the soil. You actually don't need activated charcoal. You can use regular potting mix. You can use the soil that the plant comes in. It's really up to you. I just sort of prefer this because it helps a lot with drainage, and that's a real concern when you're building your terrariums. And then I'm just going to use this little tiny yellow house plant, nothing special. So what you want to do is you want to start off by creating a layer of gravel. Now with this particular jar, it's rather tall and the plant's small, so I'm going to use a lot more rocks than I normally would, and the reason is just so that the plant is sitting higher up in the jar rather than lower. So first step is fill the jar. Fill the jar with your rocks like so, just kind of shake it around, get it nice and level like that. Next, you're going to want to put in your sphagnum moss. Just get the rest of that in. And you just want to lightly pack this down so that it covers all the rocks all the way around. So you can see right there, full coverage, and that's what you want because, again, this is your barrier between the soil and the root system of the plant and the rocks. Next, I'm just going to put in a little bit of soil and just kind of pack that around, just to cover up the sphagnum moss before I put the plants in. So you can see here the plant's right at the brim with all my levels here, so that worked out perfectly. And next, just going to fill in the rest of it with soil. Make a mess all over my table. And you just want to sort of lightly pack this down and add more as needed. And just sort of fill any kind of gaps you can. There, I've got it all over my table, and I'll just pick up a little bit more. And that's sort of how you make your basic open jar terrarium. Once I've watered this, the soil is going to compact a little bit more and it'll look quite nice. Now the reason why you want it set up like this, I said again, is all about drainage. Glass jars have no holes in the bottom, so the water has to go somewhere, and you definitely don't want it sitting in the soil because that's going to cause root rot. So what this does is the water is going to filter down through the soil, past the sphagnum moss, and it's going to collect here in the stones, and over time it'll evaporate. With an open jar terrarium such as this, you're going to have to water it a little bit more frequently, but you never want to water heavily like you would a normal plant outdoors. A little bit of water goes a long way regarding terrariums. Most of these, such as this one, I water this maybe 3 to 5 times a week, depending on how hot it's been. Like I said, if you water too much, you're going to get root rot. You could get different types of fungus or molds, things that are going to be, hurtful to your plants. So, it's better to keep them on the drier side if you can, but you always want to keep the soil moist. When you're using a closed jar terrarium, you really don't need to water at all. It's sort of an enclosed ecosystem. The water that you put in originally is going to continually evaporate, condense, and go back down. I'm not a big fan of those. They do look nice, but I always prefer the open air ones because I just think they look a lot nicer. So I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching Garden Basics.